You're on. Nice and loud.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Fabi, and I went to introduce Tina. She is the person that I recommended to speak to you guys. She started off as my counselor at Palomar College, but now we work together. I work part-time with her at the Veterans Resource Center. I thought she was a very good person to speak to you guys because she is a counselor at a community college, but she also goes above and beyond her job. I feel like she has an abundance of resources, and I just thought she would be perfect for you guys to listen to.
Thank you. Well, hello, everyone. I was listening to your professor's speech, or not speech, lecture this right just earlier, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember these things, and he was not lying, right? Not lying. I think that whole piece of like transference and countertransference, just side note, I think one of the biggest things that we have to put to practice in terms of a ritual is self-care and boundaries, right? As healthcare professionals, as just service learning folks, right? Helpers, we're in this profession because we want to help people, right? And the things that we put into people basically are coming out of us. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Because you gotta like, there was this thing that I went to, and I can't remember this girl, she was really deep, and we were in like I think it was a healing circle. I'm pretty sure it was like a healing circle, but it was this moment of just clarity, and she kind of whispered, but it was loud. And she said, "Who heals the healers?" And that was probably, I don't know, 10 years ago. Who heals the healers? And so it's like, we are healers. So we need to make sure that we take care of ourselves and that we take care of each other, and we just support each other through it, because it's not the easiest thing to do. There's moments of just celebration, but there's also moments of pain. And it's really important to not just let it come to pass, but just recognize, that this is not to like, I don't know, what's the word? Not to minimize it, because it's big, but it's like, there's also so much in front of it that we still need to do, right? So anyway, a little bit of that, right? So my presentation, just fair warning, it's a little rough. I didn't even go through, when we were going through the lecture, I was sitting there like typing up, okay, I gotta look, I'm just like processing these questions that your professor sent to me. And honestly, I didn't even think that I was gonna have a PowerPoint presentation. I was just gonna kind of go off the cuff. So forgive me if my PowerPoint presentation has some like random things, or not random, but like typos particularly. So a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in San Diego. I never left. My dad was in the Navy. My mom was an accountant. I'm a first generation college student in my family. What does that mean? That means I didn't have a lot of help navigating through the system. I went to high school. I was a really good student, but nobody taught me how to apply for colleges. So where did I go? I had like a 3.5 GPA graduation, like graduating from high school. I think I could have gone anywhere. I could have gone to UCSD. I had friends that went to UCSD, UC Irvine, and they went to different things. And I don't know why. I didn't know about SATs, or I knew about SATs. I didn't know what that process looked like. I knew about going to college. I didn't know what that process looked like. So I ended up coming, actually not after high school, I didn't even go straight to community college. I actually went to Merritt College, which was a medical type of school, vocational school. And I worked as a nurse, a medical assistant for 2 years. School was like a year and a half. And I worked as a medical assistant for an orthopedic surgeon who worked for the Chargers. at the time. So that was cool because it was like athletes and I get to go to the football games. He was a doctor on the field, so it's like, I get to hang out with Junior Seau, right? Like, hey guys, it's kind of cool having that. But my doctor, the surgeon, Dr. Chow, I'll never forget it. He pulled me into his office and he says, Tina, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? I didn't know what he meant by it, but it was telling. He was the first person that really stepped out there that saw something in me, saw that potential, and said, you could be me, basically. You could be the surgeon. You don't need to be the medical assistant, right? And I was like, okay, but I don't know how to do this. And so I went to Miramar. I went to Miramar College. I was there for a really long time because I also didn't know what I wanted to major in. So I was already in the medical field. So naturally, and being Filipino, I'm going to be a nurse, right? Natural. No, nobody told me that. Like, that wasn't something that I needed to be pressured into. I think that was a cultural thing. When I was doing things, I know it was cultural because I knew my mom was in business. I knew I did not want to do business. I am not an accountant. I suck at math. So I'm like, don't want to sit in an office punching numbers. I love science. I love psychology. And so I was like, okay, let's go to nursing. And I don't know what happened. I couldn't get through microbiology. I couldn't do it. And so I took trigonometry 3 times. Let me tell you what finally got my butt into counseling. I took trigonometry 3 times because I failed it twice. It was the 3rd time. You know what happens if you fail a class a 3rd time? You can't take it again. You have to take it somewhere else, transfer those credits back in, right? So I go to counseling and the counselor says, I said, well, what happens if I don't pass this class the 3rd time? And she said, pulled up my record. She looked at me and said, Tina, why are you taking trig? I just about died, right? Because that was a 1.5 years of life in triangles I'll never understand, right? And so I said, what do you mean? She said, you need statistics for nursing. You don't need trig. I thought I was going to go to UCSD because UCSD, right? Good school. I was going to go to UCSD and I was going to be a nurse. I needed biology. So for biology, I needed calculus, and for calculus, I needed all this math. Tina, there's no nursing program at UCSD. Well, shit, right? Okay, so look at my credits and just tell me where I'm at. Where can I go, right? Okay, well, talk to me a little bit about what you do, because I was working also at the same time I was working with kids. So this was after I was working as a medical assistant. I found a job at Poway Unified School District with a grant working with K-5 kids, right? Elementary school, early mental health initiative. Basically, I was, how do I explain this? I was doing small groups. I was trained to do small groups with kids K-5. And we looked at it was called Second Step. So these were the potential, I don't want to label it, but I'd say like the bullies, the folks that there was definitely some behavior that was showing up in the classroom that kind of said, what's happening in the classroom is what happens where? Home. Something is going on at home and that energy is getting displaced and it's being brought into the classroom. Okay. So second step, we're going to go through small groups that talk about identifying feelings. How does this feel? What's going on in this picture? How can you tell, right? You're looking at clues and you're talking about how do you manage these emotions? Like, what color is this emotion? What color is that emotion? Where does it sit? So he was talking about where does nervousness sit for you? Is it in your head? Is it in your shoulders? Is it in your stomach, right? That's why we get butterflies in our stomach when we're nervous. And sometimes nervousness could be good, happy, right? Good nervousness, really bad nervousness, right? So I was doing that. I was also doing one-on-one counseling, well, not counseling, but one-on-one play with maybe some real quiet students, the shy students. So this is where I learned nonverbal behavior because we were trained on, today you're using the red crayon. Oh, I noticed last week you used the blue crayon. So this student, this little child could be just nonverbal, right? Very shy, but the way they're communicating with you is through actions. So I learned about nonverbal communication there. And the other group that I was working with these young children was transitions. The goldfish died, grandparent died, divorce going on. What does that look like with our young ones, right? And how do we support each other? How do we not let that sit, right? So I was doing that. My counselor at the time said, "Have you thought about counseling?" And I said, no. Up until that point, all my majors, the reason why I had so many units is because my love for science and biology and chemistry. I never did physics, but I did all of those things. She said, Cal State San Marcos has a degree in human development. And I was like, what's that? I don't know what that is. I know psychology, I know sociology. I know what that says, right? I know those words, I know those majors. I don't know what that means, right? So she says, so human development is a blend of psychology, sociology, and biology, biopsychosocial model, right? Awesome, love it. Okay, let's do that. I transferred, loved that program. Human development had an emphasis in counseling, which is where I was able to have some exposure to some of the things I already knew, right? Communication skills, counseling skills, the helping skills, right? So there was that. I also minored in Spanish. Why? Because I wanted to join the Peace Corps. Did it happen? No, it did not. It's okay though. It helped me. It's definitely helped me. I said, you know what? I'll learn Spanish. I can speak to my husband's mom, right? My mother-in-law. I can speak to her now in my still kind of broken Spanish, but way better than someone else, right? I can ask her how she's doing. How are things going? How would you eat today, right? Things like that. Then I went to USD, right down the street, USD. At the time, I wanted to go into school counseling because, you know, it's like my exposure to schools. I wanted to be a school counselor, but USD at the time phased out their school counseling program and replaced it with clinical mental health. Did I know what that meant? No, I did not. Did I do it? Yes, I did. So that was my master's degree. It was in clinical mental health. And I ended up not also becoming a therapist because that was one of the outcomes of doing that program. And mind you, when I was going through that program, I was working a full-time job through both of my master's degrees. I have two. Through both of my master's degrees, I worked a full-time job. One of the biggest regrets that I had from USD was that I did not maximize all of the resources that USD had. All that money was going into tuition, and all I did was show up to class. What a waste, right? So that leads me to US students right here, San Diego State Career Center. Okay, I said it one time. Okay, so there's one. What else is up there? San Diego State. So what happens? I'm trying to apply for these jobs. I wanted to be a VA counselor, a voc rehab counselor, working with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Why? Because at the time then, after working with the young children, I found a job working at San Diego Miramar College. Work where you go to school. Awesome, right? I don't have to get in the car and drive somewhere and come back. Cool. I had a part-time job working at Miramar College, working in financial aid, but I also worked in veterans. My job was to intake paperwork, not even anything related to counseling, right? Nothing. Just, I need this, I need that, I need that. I'm copying things. I'm administrative assistant type of work. But I had to learn the GI Bill, all the chapters of the GI Bill. And at this time, I was still exposed to, like, Vietnam veterans were still coming to school. Gulf War veterans were coming in, but the GI Bill was not what it was today. Now, like before, it was like you had to go to school full time and you probably had to work full time. Imagine what that looks like on top of having a family, mortgage, right? And you were only getting $1,200 a month. Lots of students dropped out. Lots of students saw that. With the post 9/11 GI Bill, totally completely different story. Now they're fully supported, but then they're still fully supported financially, right? Our housing allowance is pretty high in San Diego, but I digress, right? But I was going to say that I've been working at Miramar College now, working in veterans, and I wanted to work with voc rehab, That's where I was going with that. VA wasn't hiring until they were hiring. Guess what? I didn't have the right degree. It explicitly said, you need a degree in rehabilitation counseling. My degree was in counseling, but not rehabilitation counseling. Guess who has a rehabilitation counseling program? San Diego State, right? Actually, a voc rehab counselor who is one of my mentors now, still, I love her to death. Lori, she's the one, she comes, right? She used to come to Miramar. I used to coordinate, voc rehabs, counselors would come to Miramar College to meet individually with their students to see how they're doing. And I said, I pulled her, we took a break and I said, Lori, how do you get a degree in rehabilitation counseling? And she said, I got mine in San Diego State. You want me to connect you with Chuck Dijaneff? And I was like, okay, let's go do that. What happens? I just need a certificate, just a certificate. And, 18 units. I can do a certificate while I'm working a full-time job. That's not too bad. The classes were at night. I can do this. If I could do a master's degree working a full-time job, I could do a certificate working a full-time job, right? So I go through the program, the certificate program at San Diego State, and it comes to the point where I'm kind of at the end. I'm done. My advisor, Chuck, says, are you sure you just don't want to go for the full master's degree? I was like, no, I don't want to do it. And he's got some ninja skills too, right? So I love this program. I love it. I love the faculty. I love the students. I love just being in that learning environment. Long story short, I got that second master's degree. Did I get a voc rehab counseling position? No, I did not. But I got something better. I work at Palomar College as a veterans counselor, which is I think way better because I could still use my skills in terms of career counseling, and I could still use my just understanding of mental health, and I could still use just all of my experiences to support students through this navigation of this educational system. Because also my own lack of understanding of my own navigational system, right? I could be that for someone, right? So I am that for someone, a lot of someone's, right? A lot of veterans. And so USD, San Diego State. That's my education. Training, I talked about early mental health. 15 years, I was working with veterans. Miramar College, I started there part-time. I was 23, right? So do the math. There's that. And then what did I know? When did I know I wanted to work with veterans? I didn't know that. It fell in my lap, happenstance, right? So how sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time with the right people and an opportunity presents itself. Don't close yourself off to those opportunities, even the things that you don't think are going to fit you. Sometimes it's the ones that's just it's an opportunity that presents itself. And if you try it out, at least you can say it wasn't your thing, but don't block it, right? Because that's an energy. I believe in energies, right? I believe in that vibe that folks give off. And if they want that intention for you, they want to help you, at least try it. Just give it a try. If anything, at the end of the day, you have the experience of having done that and you can speak to it, right? I guess there's that, veterans. I love working with the veterans. Why? One of the reasons why, and it's not just veterans. I work with veterans, I work with spouses, I work with active duty service members, and I work with dependents. That's pretty much everyone, right? That's anyone that's affiliated with the military. That's everyone, right? Just different experiences. Favorite part of being a counseling faculty? Graduation is my favorite holiday. When graduation comes around, you'll hear me say it all the time, oh, graduation is my favorite holiday. It's such my favorite, my favorite holiday. My graduation attire is sitting in my office on the back of the door. But it's also a visualization for when I'm working with students, right? It's intentional. It's not my ego. It's not. It's intentional to put my graduation robe on the back of my door. So when I close it and students are looking at my office, looking around, there's something there, right? We're trying to get to graduation. And graduation isn't just getting through an academic career. Graduation is navigating all other responsibilities and the load, your full-time job, your family, the traffic, your boss, whatever. It's all of those things. And it's like, if you could get to this point, this is like, you know, even at an associate's degree level, which is great at a community college because universities don't have the associate's degrees, right? But community colleges do, right? So that's awesome. Student success is a big deal for me, even if it's just for the day. Success, I got through the day. I woke up today. I ate today. I drank my water today, right? How do we hold our students accountable for taking care of themselves while they're going through this? They're having the same struggles that a lot of times we're having. And so there's this, what are the things? And they're reminders. They'll tell you stories about, you know, what they did that day or how they're going, and you know how you're doing and how you got through it, but it's not about you. So it's like, well, one of my biggest things to like in terms of helping is to say, well, have you been here before? Right? Because it's not about me, it's about you. You're having this hard time. Have you been here before? Did you feel like this before? And then walking them through that, right? What did you do the last time you were in the situation? We're talking about successes, right? Not the million times you've been here before and just walked away and let it go. There might have been at least one time when you were in the situation and you did something and it was different. Let's talk about that one time and amplify the crap out of it, right? And then when you leave my office, at least you're feeling a sense that you did it once before, you could do it again. Versus the narrative on the other side is, I've been here before and I failed a million times. How is this any different? Right? That's my favorite part about being a counselor is providing that reframe when students are not, when people, I shouldn't say students because we're all people, right? When people aren't feeling 100% or they're coming down on themselves and they're having these internal dialogues, right? We're not there. I'm not a therapist. So I don't have like a continuous, I see you every Wednesday at 2 o'clock for an hour and we're going to have goals that focus on these 3 things. I don't remember them. They remember me though. When they say, hey, Tina, you know, last time we talked, we did. And I'm sitting here like, I don't remember, dude. I don't remember. And that's maybe a good thing, right? I have CRS. Can't remember shit, right? I don't know. Confidentiality. Confidentiality is a thing. So, you know, if you tell me something and this is what's bothering you now, know that I'm not going to take it with me. I can't. Can you imagine? I see how many students a day, how many students a week. And if I held on to everything that everyone said to me, I don't know, right? I don't know where I'd be. That's my own preservation, my own self-care is that when I leave the office, it's in the office. How does that suck now though? Because we work from home. I work from home. So I pass this threshold where I have to create a ritual around it. And I have rituals, I call them rituals. You know, typically it's this long drive. When I'm in the car, talking to friends, I'm catching up with folks. I'm listening to a podcast, I'm listening to music, or there ain't anything going on in the car. It is silent. I've been hearing talking all day long. I just want quiet, right? And I'm shifting into my next role. I got to get home and be the wife, right? I got to cook, I got to clean, I got to take care of the cat, I got to take care of other people, right? Different role. But taking care of students, my mentors are my colleagues now. That counselor who asked me why I was taking trig, she's my biggest mentor right now. She's the one, little mighty, she's tiny but mighty. I tell her that all the time. She has pulled me out through so much. And she's my mentor now. She's the counselor that pretty much literally changed my life, changed the trajectory. She showed me how to navigate. So I try to emulate that for other students. Let me show you how to do this. Let me get you in connection with the people that are going to be able to help you, because I can't pull you the entire way out. I can introduce you to this person who probably knows 5 more people that are going to be able to help you, but you have to be open to that support. Okay. Teaching. Impact in student services. I'm faculty. I can make changes. I'm part of the councils that make the decisions, that write the rules on how we're going to process things, right? I can impact change as a faculty member on this committee. The Educational Success Council equity, right? Looking at things from the equity lens, making sure that the veterans' voice is heard there. That's me. That's awesome. Reframing student situations and validating, that's typically my way of counseling as a person. And teaching. I'm a professor. I'm a professor at counseling. So I teach a college success class. I haven't taught it in a little while because work has kind of brought me into other things, all this stuff that kind of takes it away from counseling, but still like your role is still there. You're playing this role to impact all these students. But being a counselor, being a faculty member and teaching is probably one of my biggest things. This is like the first time I've been in front of a classroom in a really long time. But teaching students, first year generation, a lot of times first generation students, Hispanic serving a community institution. So it's like your story is my story. There's a lot of similarities with that first generation. I know that struggle. I know what it's like to not have support. Please don't be afraid to ask me. I can tell you a little bit about that. And also I'm a professor here at San Diego State. I'm adjunct. I work actually in the Rehabilitation Counseling program as well. So I teach the practicum class in the spring. I only do it once a semester or once a year, just in the spring. But the practicum class in the Rehabilitation Counseling program, when you get into a master's program, there's a practicum class. You basically get you have a work site or a practicum site that you basically are putting to practice. This is a lot of times your first time being in that role of a counselor, right? You're working with clients and you have a supervisor and you're putting to practice the things that you're learning in your books. And it's a different experience and it's scary, right? When your professor was like, how are you going to be scared of a 5-year-old? It's no joke. That's scary. It is scary, but that's kind of inside of you. And it's like, you know what? They like when someone is coming to you and you're like, you're the counselor, right? You're supposed to know everything and you don't. What do you do, right? What do you do? And it's like, it's okay to be vulnerable. There's a lot of strength and I don't know. And I'm not sure about it, but I don't want to give you some BS answer. I'd rather do some research and let you know. Is that okay? Right? It's okay, because I'd rather, you give the person right information instead of giving them wrong information and having to retract it. Does that make sense? Challenging parts of my job. Too busy. There's too much going on all the time. I don't know if this is just like cultural, like going on with like the time right now, just everything being online, but it's like Zoom, right? From like 8 o'clock in the morning all the way to 6 o'clock at night. Like, I just need like a bio break, right? Like that's a thing that came out of COVID, right? Bio break. Like, I just gotta pee, right? And like videos on, right? And it's too busy. There's a lot of stuff going on. So there isn't any time really to process things. Working from home also doesn't allow me to get in contact with any of my colleagues, because sometimes when things are hard, you get 3 appointments back to back that were like, oh, that was loaded, right? And I hope that I was able to help that student in the time frame that I could. And I had to send him an email and he's probably waiting for me, and all of that's on me, right? Usually I can just go to my colleague in a different building, right? And I like to do a circle with counseling, right? General counseling. I'll just go into counseling and just walk around, see whose door is open, just to like, hey, what's going on? Can't do that. I can't do that in an online setting. That's challenging. And high responsibility, right? There's a high responsibility in terms of being online. I think that the expectation, I don't know if it's my expectation or other people's expectation, I'm not sure what it is, but that expectation that it's like immediate, like you're going to send me an email, it's going to happen right when we got the phone. Nope, I'm so sorry, it's been 10 days, right? But I also, when I know that something is going on, like, oh my gosh, it's kind of super overwhelming right now. If I don't send you an email, if I don't send you this said email in 3 days, please send me an email and just call me out on it. don't think that you're telling me what to do. It's just really overwhelming. And I do appreciate it when you're sending me emails and you remind me, because it's visual, right? We can only look at things. We got like everything's bullet point. You can't read stuff, right? So it's hard. There's that. Resources and support is limited. And there's my Who Heals the Healers. Establishing and maintaining boundaries. The biggest boundary that's very difficult for me to maintain is my own time, right? Your work schedule from this time to this time. Like if you were in the office, this is when you come in and this is when you go out. This is technically a job you bring home, but what if your work is in your home? It's always there. It's a reminder. So things that we want to try to do is create a ritual around that, right? You shut down the computer and that thing doesn't come up until Monday morning, right? Shut it down, put it away, put it in its case and put it away. Clean off your desk, right? Clean off your desk, organize it so that when you come back the next day, it's fresh and you don't come in with the reminder of the mess that you made yesterday and all the overwhelm comes back, right? It's visual. Another challenge is when your personality clashes within the department because there's a collective history there. How do you, and this is the most ironic thing about like just being in any counseling department. I've worked in 3. There was Miramar, there was Maricosta, and there was Palomar. And each department in counseling had its own group funkiness. I'll call it a group funkiness. In group dynamics and counseling, you learn that there's a function with dysfunction, like, or even systems, right? Systems theory. Do you guys learn theories yet? Or is that in like grad school? Theories?
A little bit more in grad school.
Okay, so they talk about, here's the analogy, systems theory. You all know like a mobile, right? When you have babies and there's a little mobile, little things hanging and you play music and it goes around. So systems theory, when we're talking about like something is imbalanced and it's not straight, when you fix the one thing that's not working right and the whole system changes, it creates a dissonance with everything else. The norm for everyone else is shifted because now all of a sudden this person is okay or something. It just, everything shifts. So there's this like loaded history that comes in. I've been working at Palomar College now 6 years and I still haven't figured out what the heck this Palomar way is, right? And why are we doing this? Because it doesn't work, it doesn't serve us. And there's been this hiring, and you're laughing at me. Is it the
I went
same?
to school there.
Oh.
And I just came from another institution where it
Same?
was that way.
Oh, gosh. So, you know, there's a group of newer counselors that were hired that are like gung-ho, equity-minded, moving. Like, you talk about moving and shaking, right? Like they're moving and shaking and they're shaking things up. And so now there's like in the counseling department, there's this imbalance of the folks that kind of have been sitting back and just like doing the status quo, whatever that looks like. And then there's the other part of counseling that's like, we need to change this, right? We are faculty. Like, what is that? We need to change this and we need to have a campaign and we need to, and it's draining, right? So there's personality clashes that the collectively counseling department needs to kind of work through. And what's ironic is that we're all counselors and we should all understand communication and what's going on in this group, and it doesn't happen, right? We can't deal with that in an hour and a half when we have just, you know, weekly meetings. There's that. Bureaucracy, part of that, timeframes. Bringing students in, or like academic records, you'll see it, right? And when a student doesn't tell you what's going on in their life, but you pull up their academic record, you can tell when a student has been doing really well. They start off and you see their record, A, B, 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 A, B, B, and all of a sudden a D, a C, a W, FWs. You can almost identify like what was going on this semester down. Something happened. And if you don't think that that something happening doesn't impact your academic record, there's this. You're planning on transferring to UCSD and you want to get into biology, And we have to do something about this. So we have to have hard conversations about that. So that's what I mean by bringing students in. I don't like to call them out. I like to bring them in, right? Because calling someone out puts us in a defensive kind of sense. So I like literally say it. I'm like, I'm not calling you out. I'm calling you in. Can we talk about what's going on here? Because I also don't want you to waste your time. You know what I mean? You're using a GI Bill, that's taxpayer dollars, right? So it's like, I would rather you use that to make sure that, you know, it's going to something, that we're not just getting paid just to get paid. Might as well get something out of it, right? Get that fixed. It's also hard to turn the counselor off when you're in any space, at least for me. I speak from my own experience, right? People know me as a counselor, so they don't want to talk to me about stuff. So I'm like, oh, that kind of impacts my relationships a little bit. And so it's like, I don't want to be that person. I'm just here, right? Like, what's going on? So in terms of like your circles, like start to get into things, especially as students, because you're learning things, right? And when you learn stuff, new things, the way that we understand it is how it resonates within us first. So there's a lot of processing about like how you learn something, how do you digest it and make sense of it? Because you can only apply it to your own experiences. And you need someone to kind of bounce it off of. Sometimes it's our friends and our family, right? And this is where I say, go to therapy, right? Therapy, like we have behavioral services here too, right? Utilize that resource. It's free. Why not? I did it. I had to. It was part of my program, but there's that too. So if you've never gone to therapy, it's definitely an experience, and you can try different therapists, which is also important because therapists all function from like, they operate from different theoretical orientations. And so, you know, I don't know, would you like Gestalt, right? Like sitting chair technique, right? You're yelling at a chair or you're getting it out on a chair versus dialectical behavior therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, right? There's different styles that different therapists will employ, and you might gravitate to one or two. Be eclectic, right? Could. Create your rituals for self-care. Go to therapy, try out different therapists with different theoretical orientations. And career center, career center, career center. There, good. I said it 4 times. Why? Why? Because we have a phenomenal career center here at San Diego State. Phenomenal. And career counseling is its own field. You could help people identify their aptitudes, their strengths, the areas, the clusters of like personality traits and what careers are going to best match, not best suit, right? Because sometimes we try to fit in a certain place and it doesn't feel right when we get there. So how do I know that? I went through clinical mental health counseling and not realizing that clinical mental health counseling isn't what I wanted to do. That is an expensive mistake. Well, I wouldn't even call it a mistake because USD was a great school and it got me my job at Palomar College. That master's degree with my experience as a certifying official at Miramar College got me my job as a counselor. I didn't have much counseling experience, which was unheard of. Typically, community college counselors can be an adjunct for a long time, a long time before they're invited to, well, first of all, there's not too many of these counseling positions at the community colleges that open up, but when they do, they open up. And you start to get invited to these interviews. And there's a whole process to that too. Typically, it's like 1, 2, 3 interviews, and they're all panels. So why do I say Career Center? Is because the Career Center offers a service that helps walk you through that process. Let's put you in that situation. Practice your questions. How do you answer them? How are you sitting? You know, honestly, I think what got me my job at Palomar College was that I sat in the bathroom and I did power poses. I'm not lying. You know that TED Talk with the power poses? I don't even know what her name is, but she was like, stand there like Superwoman. I swear to everything I love, I did that in the bathroom at Palomar College. And I walked into my interview like, I got this. How are you? You know, what's going on? I wasn't nervous, even though I was freaking out. I was super freaking out. But power poses, challenges, advising grad school. Okay. How do you research your grad school programs? Again, Career Center, right? You're not on your own. You're not on your own with that. Do you not think that there's like a transition? Like, how did you figure out for, you know, choosing San Diego State? You know, were there people that helped you out? Did you do your own research? Did you have mentors? Did you have professors? Did you have counselors that help you with that? The same thing happens from the universities transferring into graduate programs. So definitely use that, right? They'll help you also write your resume, help you with the cover letter. They'll help you with like an MBTI. Do you guys do assessments in any of your classes yet? So like the MBTI and the strong assessments, you can pay a little bit of money. I think it's like $30. That assessment, if you go to any like career center, will cost you, I don't know, how much is that? 400, 500 bucks?
Some places, yeah.
Some places, a lot. So it's like $30. And then you get to sit down with a career counselor, and go through it. It's the most validating type of experience to kind of go through. You take an assessment. It's not like you went into Cosmopolitan and took this little assessment and it's like, okay, this is my score and what does it say about me, right? Kind of like that, because it's like, you kind of like this or you don't do that. Like you like to work outside and or you don't, like on a scale from 1 to 10, right? Is it yes or no? Like questions. And it's basically establishing like a personality assessment and identifying what career pathways or what career clusters you appreciate looking at. And then you can do, you know, searches with like, what are some careers in this cluster? And you'll find you might be like, I really liked science, but I like everything I ever did was in the helping professions. That was one theme that was like throughout everything. I was a helper. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be a physical therapist, an occupational therapist. I wanted to help people. Look at that career objective. What kind of career? What is the career that you want to do? And also explore the related careers, because a lot of times you're not going to do that one thing for the rest of your life. It's definitely going to branch out into other areas, and you might go into like specializations. And then your practice will just kind of throw you into different opportunities that will lead you to like different jobs. And then that's how you go from, I was a medical assistant, and then I was working with kids, and then I was working with veterans, and now I'm a counselor. I still use all of that biology. I geek out on that. I love that. You know, this physiology, the psychological physiology. What's going on with your system when you're stressed out? Let me tell you, right? Or if, you know, one of the specializations that I had with the Rehabilitation Counseling program is that I also have a specialization in cognitive disabilities, which really helped me because I work with veterans. One of the biggest disabilities that come out of this war, that have come out of these wars, is traumatic brain injury. It's not PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. And traumatic brain injury could happen with anybody. A car accident. You hit your head on something hard enough, you know, this little 3-pound organ here is responsible for everything you are. Everything. Your personality, your memory, your voice, your auditory, your vision. It is responsible for everything. So I love that I got into that cognitive disability specialization because it allowed me to tap back into the science, the biology and the physiology. I love that. And the chemistry. How do drugs work in your head, right? That's fun. I did? I did it. Okay.
I was wondering if anyone had any questions for you.
I was gonna say, you're gonna tell me if I'm like talking too much, right?
No, no. Perfect time.
I figured I'm like, I'm gonna start to like see people trying to start to, go, it must be time to go.
Do you have any questions about rehab counseling, working with veterans?
Yeah.
What would you say is the hardest thing about working with veterans, since there's such a specific like group of people who have been through specific things that not all of us have?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one of the questions that I'll get sometimes, a lot of times is, are you a vet? I'm not a vet. So how can I get someone to, like, someone who has all of these experiences, how could I get them to establish that rapport? Because that's really important. You asked about like, what's the hardest part of it? Honestly, in my opinion, it's not. I think that could be, if you don't have those experiences, because I don't have those experiences. I don't know. I hear about and I can understand the camaraderie, the experiences that veterans have, right? In terms of, it's a culture. And so I might not know what you've been through, but I know a little bit about transition, right? And you're going like, that's like one of the biggest things that is common. Change is the most like constant thing. And it's not, so it's not really that bad. It doesn't really come up that much. They don't talk about like their experiences in the military. If anything, they're talking about more what's going on with them now. And I can maybe help identify, well, that makes sense that you're experiencing this because this is not like similar, like we don't have the same culture. So it's like, okay, so this person in the military you would have gone to. So here, this is like chain of command, right? So they know chain of command. What's my chain of command? So you have to kind of learn the language and kind of present it that way to say, okay, you go to the teacher first, and then you go to the dean, and then you go to the department chair, and then the dean, and then the VP. That's your department chair. That's your chain of command. So, and whatever that looked like in the military, that's similarity. So then you have to kind of translate those types of things. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
What would you say was one of the most like difficult aspects of like counseling kids, and especially like those small groups you mentioned?
One of the difficult things is when and I'm not necessarily working with veterans, but I guess just anybody really, is when there's no ownness, right? So it's like the responsibility, where does it fall? So it's like, I'm a veteran, I serve my country, so there's this like, I deserve type of thing. And it's like, gosh, okay, I hear that and thank you for your service, but I don't know how that's going to get you through this chemistry class right now. You know what I mean? So it's like, that doesn't grant, and for the most part though, they know that. So they think, I think that they think that it's fault in them more than not. And I think that there's a couple of things that are going on there in terms of like them acclimating to civilian culture. And then there's also the civilians acclimating to military culture. And so depending on where we're kind of like in this wash, it's communication is really a big thing. So when something you'll understand, you'll notice about where veterans sit in a classroom, right? It's very specific. Like, I need that seat in the back, near the exit. Because if something happens, I need to get the hell out of here quick. Or they'll be in the front because, I hear this a lot too. Ears, right? They've got, some have hearing impairments. They can't hear right. They can't see, right? Vision and hearing. So they'll sit in the front. And then sometimes on top of that, they'll sit in the front because they don't want to see what everyone in front of them is doing on their computers really during a lecture. Someone's gaming in front of them. There's no, like, a lot of times they have a really hard time with like the respect issue. Like you need to sit and pay attention to your professor. Like you need to stop what you're doing, right? So I think that that's actually a benefit whenever I come in and I do a presentation with military affiliated students, I have their ultimate attention. So then when I'm in a classroom and I don't have some students' attention, then it's like, I'll just sit there Are you done? Like, are you done? Seriously, right? If someone else doesn't call you out on it, then I'll just pause and wait until you're done because clearly it's more important, right? Or that's when I intentionally say something and it's like, just so you know, I'm not gonna repeat it, but that's gonna be on the test, right? Wait, what? You missed it, bro, right? Too bad. So I think that for the most part, though, I think that working with veterans is pretty awesome because they have these lived experiences and they could be super real with you. And they have no reason to hold back on anything. So their language is fun, but it's like, it's cool, right? Like we're all just here. Kind of going through it and whatever, it's like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to support you and meet you where you are. I think that's important. I'm not trying to like make you be or make you do something. And if you're having a hard time with it, let's just walk together. So I think that we all just want that type of treatment and just like, you seem to have a really hard time, like you're having a difficult time with this. Like, would you want to go to behavioral health? That's probably mental health is probably a place that's a little bit touchy. You got to have like a hard conversation and there's a trust and the comfort level before you can kind of insert that and be like, oh, this is beyond my scope, right? You're talking about things that I really can't help you with. And I think that the next 20 minutes that we have could be best helped if we walk together, right? To get the help that you need, because I mean, I can listen and reflect emotions all we want right now, but I need to make sure that you're okay. And it makes me feel better too, because it's a responsibility I don't have to take home. I took care of that student. I did what I could, right? We hear that on Grey's Anatomy. You did everything you could. Any other questions? I hope they did okay. Did they okay? Okay.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead. I had a question during the break about one of the upcoming